Faiven EA, and I'm gonna make injera for the very first time, and I have all the ingredients at my parents' house. So thank you to my mother Linda for helping me, and thank you Abrahet and everybody for showing us, the new generation, how to make it. So here's all that you need. We have a bucket that we're gonna put everything in, and we have a lid here. Then we have 3 different types of flours. You can use different variations, but we like the way it comes out when we have these 3. So there's 3 cups of teff flour here, 2 cups of barley flour, and 2 cups of white flour. So it's 3, 2, and 2. And then over here, we have the starter. Now this is very important for the fermenting process and for the mixture to come out correctly. So all the starter is a mixture of water and flour that has been fermenting for a couple days. And every 8 hours, when it's not in the refrigerator, you have to feed it. Feeding it is just putting a mixture of the teff flour and water together, mixing it up and letting it activate because it's live. It's like yeast that it rises. So let's begin. First, we're gonna mix all 3 flours together. You don't have to be delicate here, you're just mixing them like sand in a beach. And I'm gonna toss it with my hands. Make sure you wash your hands because everybody's gonna be eating this. Quickly toss with your hands until it's a nice caramel sand color. Yeah, so it's just one nice color. That's how you know it's all mixed. Next, you're gonna add the starter. We were fortunate enough to get some starter from an Eritrean woman in New York, because if you make it from scratch, you have to ferment for several days. And I'm going to grab a spatula to get the rest. Perfect. So now, the fun part, just start mixing. So the trick here is consistency. You're gonna go through a few different consistencies. Of course, first it starts with just flour, then it turns into a dough, and then you get into a batter. We're gonna add some lukewarm water, a little at a time, to get the dough. And you also have to be careful that the water is not too cold to kill the yeast, and then not too hot also, it would kill the yeast. So that's why lukewarm is very important. So we're gonna keep slowly adding water. And I'm gonna add some more water. So I'm done kneading, and it looks kind of murky because I put a little water on top. So you're gonna keep kneading and adding water until you get like a pancake mix runny texture. And before you close it off, you wanna make sure you clean the sides. You can also do this with water, but I wanna be really precise so I can see exactly where the level rising changes. So you'll see a clear watermark, like a sea level mark, after the fermenting happens overnight. So here it is, very liquidy, the thin layer of water on top. And then you put on the lid. and you store it overnight. So it's the next morning and I left the batter on the counter to ferment overnight in room temperature. So let's see how it turned out. Moment of truth. Whoa! So this is what it should look like. You'll see a very distinct line of demarcation where there has been a level change in the batter. And as you can see, there are some bubbles that are still forming because it is live and it's active and it's fermenting, and that's exactly what we want. So now the water that was on top, that's runoff, and we're gonna pour it out. So I have a container here to contain the runoff, and you can do it very slowly. Perfect. So this is the consistency of the runoff. It's very murky water, and what you have left in the bucket is just pure thick batter. So this came out exactly how we wanted to, but right now we're gonna set it aside and work on the very last ingredient to add. So this right here is 2 cups of self-rising flour that we're gonna add to the batter, but because self-rising flour is really hard to get the lumps out of, we're gonna first mix it with hot water in a separate container. And this is reminiscent of the first steps with the original batter, where you just keep pouring. There's no exact measurement of the hot water that you need. You're just gonna keep mixing with your hand until you get the lumps out. And if you want to cheat, you can use a blender and it'll go by much faster. And this is exactly what it should look like. And you're gonna add it to the batter. Now that it's smooth, it's much easier to mix in. And I'm going to grab a spatula again to get the rest. And now we mix it up so that it's all one uniform color. But you'll notice that it's very thick. It's not the consistency that we need, so this is where you add hot water. So while I was doing the other steps, I was actually boiling water in a tea kettle. So you're gonna add a little bit at a time until you get the desired consistency. And the water was obviously boiling because it was in the tea kettle, but you want to let it sit for a little bit. You don't want very hot boiling water in there, but it's still pretty warm to the touch. And just a little bit more. And it's feeling pretty good. You should have it pretty runny. Definitely more runny than a pancake mix this time. So we do not need any more water. And all right. So I washed my hands after mixing it, and now we're just gonna store it. So this is The last push of this process, you're gonna leave it out for room temperature one more time for about 4 hours so it can ferment again with the new self-rising flour that we added. And after about 4 hours of that, you're gonna move it into a cool place. So the refrigerator is what we're gonna use. It's also winter where I am and cold outside, so you can also put it outside if your climate is like that. So about 4 hours in room temperature and then another 4 hours in the fridge, and then you're good to go. It's 8 hours later and it's been fermenting. There's also a layer of water on top again, so this is for the runoff. This time, we will not discard the runoff because if the batter is not the consistency we need, we're gonna put some of the water back. It's looking great, so before we move on to cooking, I'm going to transfer some of the batter into an easy pour cup. So I'm going to use this measuring cup, and you can just take a ladle and transfer it into the cup and start cooking. So let's cook. We have to pour it in a circle so that we get the most eyes and so it comes out the most even. Now this part takes a little bit of practice. I know all the aunties out there know how to pour perfectly so they don't have to alter it with your hand afterwards, but I'm new, so this is what we're gonna get. So after it starts to cook, most of the eyes are forming, you're gonna take your cover and let it cook some more. And it's done. And you'll see the edges start to come up, and then that's how you grab it. Then you transfer it, and you let it cool. And you're on to the next. Boom.
Very good, Faiven. Very good. Thank you. Excellent job. Wow.